Dear Henry, how are you, me old sausage? Glad to know the historians of your time have described you as virile. I guess I take my pillow scam elsewhere. Some time ago, my friend the Blue Sasha suggested I look into your affairs and perhaps give you some advice, and that is why you are receiving marriage advice from a lifelong bachelor. I heard you're into rough wooing. Good for you. Not so good for Anne Boleyn. But my man, you have had more wives than a Hollywood actor, and more mistresses than a Frenchman. You have had so many wives that Rick Wakeman has written an entire album about them. In fact, I am almost certain that you have influenced the aforementioned minstrel to take up the hobby of marrying women and subsequently divorcing them, much like yourself. In fact, you have rearranged the entire religious and social fabric of English life to enable you to take up so many wives. Your reign has so many points of interest and curious deeds to be remembered by, and yet you will forever be remembered as the bampot who made the same mistake not only once or twice, but 6 bleeding times. First, you marry Catherine of Aragon. In your defense, you have been led into it by your parents. She was older than you, and not much to look at, but your paps always desired an alliance with the Spanish. You were a mere lad, 18 at most, when you tied the knot. But most importantly, she could not provide you with an heir. Much to the disappointment of your mistresses, this was the Henry's great matter historians spoke of. So you started an affair with Mary Boleyn, and then Anne Boleyn. That stuck-up papist, Pope Clement VII, would not agree to your divorce, even though on him you tried the most soft wooing. In his defense, I would have suggested couples counseling too, but you just bid a "see you later, alligator," not only to your woman, but also to the Holy See. So you married Anne Boleyn, changing the entire legal and religious fabric of the land in the process. Educated, eloquent, beautiful, a friend of the Protestants, she was also smart. In fact, too smart for you. So you accused her of pursuing affairs with other men and gave her the headman's axe. It is twits like you who say they like women with big brains and then act like total knobs when they actually meet one, who give the rest of us, who have a genuine fetishism for big cerebra, a bad name. 10 days after the poor woman's demise, you choose to marry Jane Seymour. I must say that I greatly enjoyed her work as Dr. Quinn, the medicine woman. I heard she's been a Bond girl at some point as well. Good for you. Wasn't she in Amadeus as well? But never mind. She did provide you with a male heir, Edward, who would later affix 6 to his name, presumably a reference to the number of your wives. The poor lad died at the tender age of 15. I wager now you regret illegitimizing that poor gal Mary. Not that such a minor matter would stop that most vindictive lady from fetching the throne for herself anyhow. Poor Jane died of complications related to Ed's birth, which is rather curious since her Wikipedia article mentions that she is alive and well and currently resides in the United States. Curiously, she has married 4 times herself and is the oldest woman who's ever posed for Playboy. You subsequently married the other Anne. She wasn't much to look at, but some people have a weakness for girl next door types, to resort to a neologism. You never saw her beforehand. You just sent the lesser Holbein to paint you a portrait of her. I would have sent his dad, but you are excused on the account of him being dead. Need I say a 49-year-old man marrying a woman of 25 is somewhat looked down upon in today's society? Well, you bored of her before you could say St. Petersburg. It is at this point I'd say marriage is not for you. I have a friend, a Dr. Rivers, who would have gladly provided you with marriage counseling, but he chose to divorce her and marry Catherine Howard instead. She was 17, which makes me rather uncomfortable to talk about your marital affairs. I remember when old Dartmoor married a girl 30 years his younger. He ended up paying for some rather smart bonnets some other man got to enjoy. Well, the same thing that happened to poor Dartmoor happened to you. The expensive necklaces you gave her ended up on another man's nightstand. Much like many an old chap who marries a woman much younger than himself, you refuse to believe you have no attraction to her to the point that she would pursue an affair. It took poor Cranmer days to convince you she was doing the stricken snake and teapot with Derham. So you gave them both the sanguine haircut once the penny finally started to roll. Finally, you married the other Catherine. She was ugly as sin, guaranteeing that she could not successfully pursue an affair even with the lepers of the land. Hurt much, me old China? She bore you arguing over religion to the point that you chose to meet his prophet in person rather than to listen to her talk about the finer points of his word. Come to think of it, now that you have taken the plunge, why not switch to a religion or creed that allows polygamy? I know Mormonism was not a thing back then, but Islam was already around. Anyway, I'm sure your next marriage will inevitably fall apart at some point too, so here are some pointers. First, do not pursue affairs with any third-party ladies. It is at times like these that you must be extra careful not to steal a hornet's nest and make a mess of it. Try to spice it up in the bedroom instead. Dress in a fursuit. Second, seek professional help. I understand there are now people with degrees in psychology, a degree in psychology being one step up from a degree in arts history in terms of usefulness, who profess they can aid couples overcome their marital difficulties. I heard the NHS now provides free couples therapy. Money should be a concern to you, since unlike their alive but useless counterparts, dead but intrepid royalty are no longer fed out of the public purse. Third, do not accuse former lovers of infidelity and have them executed. It reflects poorly on your character and discourages other women from making future connections with you. If need be for an execution, separate your political enemies and your former lovers' trials and beheading. It is not in good taste to mix state and personal affairs. Also, here are a few words of advice unrelated to all matters feminine. First, be more careful when jousting. We do not wish you to fall and break your scepter now, do we? Second, be more kind towards the Scottish. Deep-fried food will not cook itself. Third, be mindful of that moody blackguard Charles. First he gets miffed because you do not help him invade France, and then sells you down the river when you actually do. Be mindful of pressure ulcers. Rotate your massive girth every once in a while and use a high-density foam mattress. Take vitamin C. Apply seaweed gauze to your sores. Finally, go on a diet. Please do. You were voted the most handsome man in England for 3 consecutive years, but ever since your horse accident, you've been gaining weight like a desperate housewife. Your obesity will be the death of you. Yours faithfully, Sir William Henry Walter Wallace von Moltke.